Post. This is What's Up and Why, bringing you the bright side of life, one fun moment at a time. Brought to you by the New Thought Media Network. Please put your hands together for your hosts, Rev Casey Taylor and Miss B Lovely. Comfortable in my skin, cozy with who I am. Cozy. Cozy. I love how we were both on brand with the lyrics. Hey guys, thank you for joining us for another episode. As I said in the intro, I am Miss B Lovely. This is the wonderful Rev Casey Taylor. How you be today?
Yes, I am. I be really good. I am feeling this energy of the year of the fire horse. I don't know if I talked about this as the season of the wood snake was coming to a close, but in December, the Centers for Spiritual Living theme was shedding your skin. And I was like, ooh, at the end of the year, the snake, we're talking about shedding our skin. And December, it was huge for me. We left the space where the United Life Center was in a totally different space. A bunch of people stepped down at once. Like there was a huge shedding for me in December. In January, I was kind of like feeling the pain of that. So just kind of like sitting in the feelings of my grief, and just like honoring my pain. And once the year of the fire horse kicked in earlier this week, my whole energy, like literally at midnight. And I don't usually even stay up till midnight. Starting in January, I've been on my spiritual practice game of going to bed early and waking up with the sunset and with the sunrise and meditating for 20 minutes, journaling. Like I've been on some like disciplined spiritual practice unlike I've ever done before. And then like when the fire horse kicked in that night, I was up, like up. And I was
wired
like, online and I saw that it was that fire horse had started. And I was like, oh, okay, here we go. So here I am. I'm on that fire horse vibe. How you be lovely?
I feel burnt out, but I also feel like what is it? In that movie Toy Story, when Buzz and Woody was on the little the race car and they struck the little match and it had dynamite on it. I feel like I have that in my back now. And I'm gonna be like Buzz and Woody, like instead of exploding, wings are gonna come out and I'm gonna glide, gently and delicately to the next phase. But I definitely like resonate with what you were saying about how last year was the year of the snake. We were shedding a lot of things. I shed a lot of things, like shed people, habits, and stuff. And how they were saying like this year, the year of the fire horse. I didn't even know it was called the fire horse. I thought it was the year of the horse. But I love that it's fire horse because you're supposed to be stepping into like the best version of yourself. Like last year was shedding all the stuff that you didn't need. And then this year is like stepping into what your purpose is, on fire. So I'm feeling real amped up. I went to Philly for the weekend. I went to the African American Museum there where they have the Ruth E. Carter exhibit. She is a Oscar-winning costume designer. She designed the costumes for Black Panther, Coming to America 2, Selma, Sinners, Amistad, Malcolm X, Do the Right Thing. And it was really, really cool and interesting to like see the thought processes behind costuming and wardrobing. Like I didn't even realize she had notes about how she wanted different color palettes to meet different characters, like their mood boards and all that stuff. So just seeing the intricate details that go into costuming some of my favorite Black films, it was very, very, very fun, very interesting. Loved it. Shout out to Ruth E. Carter, who's up for an Oscar for Best Wardrobe for Sinners this year. So gonna give her some claps. That exhibit was amazing. If you're ever in Philly, visit the Philadelphia African American Museum. Beautiful exhibit. You will be amazed.
I love that you are honoring Black History Month by attending museums, learning more, educating yourself. and giving reverence and respect to, I believe I read somewhere that she's been nominated for more Oscars than any black woman in
Yes.
Oscar history. So
Yes.
shout out to the Philly African American Museum for honoring her with this
Mhm.
exhibit and really teaching the upcoming generations about notable black figures alive today, giving her her flowers today while she's alive.
Yes.
Props to the to that museum. Um, as we were talking about the fire horse, I made this joke online about, and it was absolutely tasteless. Because Oklahoma is literally on fire right now, and it started a couple of days ago. And what's to me so wild about that is that the ash from the fires in Oklahoma is falling all over Chicago. Our cars in Oklahoma, I'm in Oklahoma City, like barely
Can
go.
you back up a little bit for the people who don't know? Oklahoma is
Yeah,
on fire right
oh,
now?
there are fires in a part of Oklahoma that is not where Oklahoma City is, which is why none of that ash has fallen on us. It's in a different part of the state. But it's fire season here, and I don't even, like that's the news that's been about this fire, because it's definitely kind of middle of nowhere Oklahoma. So as far as I'm aware, of 15,000 acres, that's what's going on.
That's a
And
lot.
this fire in Oklahoma is affecting Chicago in a way that it's not affecting the state, which I find really interesting. So my tasteless joke was about how my year of burning up the wood snake, the fire horse came in hot, burned up my wood snake, and that my family in Chicago is feeling the burn from my ashes. So next month, I'm about to go see our Chicago family. Be lovely. I'm gonna see you in North Carolina in June. We should get some new pictures. Maybe refresh our intro a little bit. But
Yeah, because one of our cousins says we look like we're lesbian lovers in our pictures.
that's just
I
because
was like,
me.
I
I
gotta
look like
see
a lesbian in
that.
all things. We took these pictures in our jammies where we were toasting with champagne. I didn't use any of those in our promos because they were saying that to us when the pictures were getting taken.
Can I just say, like, I want to give it like a shout out to the year 2025. 2025 was an amazing year. It was my first time going to Pride. Like, as an ally, I've always wanted to go to Pride. So I went to my first Pride last year, and I just feel like that was such an amazing time because Cece Peniston and Cynthia Erivo was there. You're from Chicago, so like how big like Cece Peniston is for like the house music scene and everything. So just like being there, being in all that energy and just like experiencing it. I'm really looking forward to going to Pride again this year and like so many great live concerts like Floetry is reuniting and going on tour this year. So I'm like, I'm going to go see that. I'm so excited for everything that like I feel like 2025 just like catapulted me into 2026. I'm so excited to see what's happening next.
Yes, that fire horse energy. I'm here for
Fire
it.
horse energy, but the fire horse well no, I'm not even going to use that segue. So I do want to take a moment to give a rest in peace to Reverend Jesse Jackson, who died earlier this week at the age of 84. If you're not familiar with Reverend Jesse Jackson, first I want to say, what type of rock have you been living under? Shame on you and your history teachers. But he is famous African American civil rights leader, activist, politician. He was an ordained Baptist minister, got his start in South Carolina, marched along the sides of prominent civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Al Sharpton. He even said like there was an interview that I heard where he was like he's one of the oldest living civil rights leaders because growing up, he saw a lot of his fellow civil rights leaders, like, being killed or murdered at early ages. So it's like the fact that he's had a long lasting legacy, lived to see the age of 84, was a big advocate for voter rights. And that's something that's under attack this year with lawmakers trying to pass the SAVE Act. If you don't know the SAVE Act, I really suggest that you read up into it because it's making it harder for you to be able to go and vote in national elections where you would need to either bring your passport or your birth certificate to prove your identity. and people of certain backgrounds and certain socioeconomic backgrounds, it's going to be very disenfranchising to them. So pay attention to what's happening with the SAVE Act before these elections start up for the midterms in the fall. But giving a rest in peace and rest in power to Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was on the front lines and sacrificed his freedom, his life at some times, and his personal safety to be able to make sure that Black people had the same rights as everybody else in this country.
Yeah, I'm realizing I met Jesse Jackson a few times. I've Jesse Jackson Senior a few times living in Chicago. When I worked in journalism, he was around. He was at things, and because I was heavily involved in the Black journalism scene, I was involved in the NAACP for a while. I went to some push
Mhm.
breakfasts. Got an opportunity to connect with him several times, and I'm grateful to be able to say that I've only had positive experiences with him. With all the people that I've gotten an opportunity to get to know over the course of my life, like he was always very kind and sweet to me. One time I noticed like I was getting on a plane and he was on the phone sitting in his seat while he was on, while we're on the plane and I'm walking on, and he like tells the person to hold on and like interacts with me. And I was like, we've only met a couple of times. I didn't even know I was somebody that you would stop your conversation for to make sure that you see when I walk by on a plane. So we really crossed paths a lot right before I left and moved to LA. So I just am grateful for that opportunity and for having such positive things to say about him. It's funny because like I don't think I've ever shared this, and I'm gonna say it out loud because this man's not alive right now. I met Quincy Jones one time, and he was
Mm.
straight up disrespectful, like
What
just
happened?
and like just he was like flirty in a way that was like really Quincy Jones, you know what I mean? Like, and I heard a lot of those kinds of stories about Quincy Jones, and it makes sense because I met him one time and I had that experience. So I'm grateful to
Wow.
say that Jesse Jackson Sr. was a perfect gentleman every time I came across him.
Rest in peace to the perfect gentleman. And
Yes,
I'm
yes.
yes. Something else that was in the headlines that happened actually today, breaking news. Former Prince Andrew, the brother of King Charles, was arrested in connection with an investigation into the Epstein files in the United Kingdom. The gag for me is when they went to arrest him, it just so happened to be his 66th birthday. So I'm a firm believer that everything done in the dark comes to the light. Like growing up in a Christian household, my grandmother would always say, no matter what you do, whatever type of wrong you do, God is going to reveal it. Like you cannot put bad karma out into the world and think that you're going to prosper. So I think that the fact that this is happening on his 66th birthday, this man who's been accused of sexually assaulting young women, vulnerable women at that, and the fact that, he not only got his royal titles snatched from him, got his inheritance taken away, disowned by the royal family. But to get arrested on your 66th birthday, too, I just feel like that's nothing but cosmic karma.
Since we're bringing up the Epstein files, what comes to my mind, especially since we're on the New Thought Media Network right now, is Deepak Chopra, who showed up a fair amount of time saying things like God is a construct, cute girls are real. And this is a man who's made millions of dollars in the spiritual industry, now being linked to and shown, demonstrated as somebody who's been in Jeffrey Epstein's corner, despite all of the allegations coming to light. How Deepak Chopra was complicit and supportive and asked Jeffrey to bring his girls to come visit. And so as these files are really demonstrating the shadow side and the darkness of royals and millionaires and industry leaders and spiritual leaders, I'm grateful for the light that is being shined, and grateful to trust and know that right action is in place, that the public pressure for the American government to do something about it, despite the fact that our current sitting president was named far more times than a whole lot of other folks. To trust and know that just as public pressure led to the release of these files, that public pressure leads to consequences for these actions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I do think something that like growing up reading the Bible, seeing like how God talks about justice and everything, is that people may think that they're getting away with things for a while, and it may seem like you're getting away from it, but at the end of the day, everybody has to what's it called, atone for the actions that they've what they put out into this world. Like everything that you do, it comes back on you, whether it's good, whether it's bad. So I am definitely a firm believer that justice will be served either here on earth or in the afterlife. But we all have to reap basically what we sow. And I just love that we are living in an era where people are being held accountable for what they do, and people are calling stuff out. Like with the new America's Next Top Model documentary series that's on Netflix, where they're calling out, you know, the negative culture that they insinuated back in the early 2000s. Like they had Tyra, Miss J, like basically most of the people who was on the panel there at America's Next Top Model. They're saying now, like, you know, a lot of the stuff that we allowed to happen back then, it wouldn't be able to fly now because people hold folks more accountable these days. And I just love how this generation now is calling people out, forcing people to be held accountable. Like, no, we're not sweeping stuff under the rug. No, we're not looking the other way. If you do wrong, you're going to be held accountable for it, which is right.
And what's up and why we lean to the brighter side of life. And I love that you are able to really spotlight, highlight, celebrate, and honor our growth as a country. I think we have
Yeah.
a tendency in these collective conversations to blame and shame and point fingers at one another. And I really respect and appreciate how you are able to celebrate our growth as a country, of recognizing that what was normal in the early 2000s, which wasn't that long ago, like we're talking 20 some odd years ago. Some of these seasons of America's Next Top Model was like 10-15 years ago. So that
Hmm.
we are noticing the fact that our country, our culture has shifted so dramatically in such a short period of time, and recognizing that, as we talked about, how the public pressure is why these Epstein files even saw the light of day, of how people are like, nah, like, and both sides, it wasn't just
Hmm.
people on one political side over another. It was both parties saying, and leaders within the party saying, release these
Hmm.
files. So props to public pressure and growth.
I wonder what was the catalyst. Like the only thing I can really think of is like when the Me Too movement popped off, and then everybody was like, "Yeah, why are we protecting these people in power who make so much money and abuse it and treat people wrong?" Like I feel like was that the catalyst that really shifted culture, where people start holding these folks that are in power accountable for their negative actions?
I'm going to say it started with the internet, because before the internet came around, as a journalist, you probably can appreciate that. We got all of our news from journalism, and so the major journalist organizations that faced lawsuits for publishing, like I'm thinking about Harvey Weinstein. I think he's our greatest example, where Harvey Weinstein put all of these pressure on journalism organizations not to release
Mm.
information that they'd learned about through investigation, knowing that Harvey Weinstein had a history of predatory behavior, and his predatory behavior prevented these investigations from ever seeing the light. But the internet
Mhm.
made it so that people can talk about things that you can, pressure a journalism organization all you want, but you can't stop a conversation that's taking
True.
place online. And so when the internet was invented, around the mid 90s, and really it had to grow. We had to get to a place where all of the information was accessible online, where
Mhm.
individuals like you and I can have a weekly talk show and talk about whatever we want. Harvey Weinstein can't come along and say we can't say this. And so having that freedom for people, regardless of where you're from, where you live, you got access to technology, internet being affordable, accessible on our phone,
Mhm.
having cameras on our phones so that we can document things that are happening that other people say, oh, that didn't happen. And then you got all these eyewitness accounts of people who are there and got video evidence.
True.
What happened is technology made it so that as as hard as millionaires and billionaires work to prevent this information to come into light, the internet made it so that it was impossible.
It's impossible to hide what's really happening.
Mhm.
So let's continue to use this free will on the internet to, continue to spread the joy that we do here at What's Up and Why, and also spreading information. You talking about like, me being a journalist and like how the internet shifted everything made me think of like when I was in Philly this past weekend. I went to the first post office ever of the United States. It was in Philly, and they have an original printing press in there, and they did live demonstrations of how like newspapers and leaflets would get made, and just seeing the starch difference of how now information can be disseminated in an instant just by quickly you typing on a cell phone, on a laptop, and it's out there. Whereas back in the day with the printing press, like they had to like it is this huge wooden contraption, so crazy. I wish I could upload the video, but seeing how we've evolved from that, where you would have to wait hours to put that information out because you have to wait for the ink to literally dry on the paper. And fun fact, paper used to be made out of cotton, not trees. So seeing how we, evolved from that, it just makes me interested to see like, okay, what's going to be the next evolution for like, the next generation after us.
I mean, that's a really great question. I've been thinking a lot about AI because that's what seems like is happening right now. And what's so interesting for me about AI is how I'm seeing it outsourced to thinking, right? Where
Mhm.
like for instance, you and I we connect, we talk about a title, we talk about what the description is going to be. We've never, as far as I don't know. Generally, like I've used AI to kind of like get some inspiration, but
Mhm.
I don't like, oh, I can't, I need a title for this. Let me just tell AI. And I'm seeing this, like people will just like have their relationship with AI and they're like, I'm trying to do this and it's about this. Give me a title that's like that, and then AI just does it. And then that's the
So
situation. And I prefer like, I prefer my thinking brain. I like AI as a tool, but I'm not trying to outsource all of my writing, my thinking, my expression to the internet. And I'm noticing that just becoming a very, very quick trend. And I'm very
Mhm.
curious. I've seen some things about how this generation of Gen Z and Gen Alpha struggle with critical thinking because they can just tell a computer what they need and it just comes to you. And
Yep.
growing up in the analog generation, I know what it's like not to have Google. I know what it's like to think about, where do
Mhm.
I do? And this upcoming generation is being robbed of that opportunity of critical thinking. I'm just curious to see where we go and how we use technology in the future.
I'm very curious too because there's a lot of negative impacts that most people don't think about. Like, point in case, the environment, the fact that these data centers that helps fuel and that helps these AI bots continue to work. They use a crazy amount of water. It's taking away from local communities. A lot of these data centers are being placed in black and brown communities. It raises the price of energy costs for people that live in the nearby residential areas. And then on top of that, it also robs you of your critical thinking skills. It robs you of the opportunity to be able to like research. Like I remember when I would like write papers or if I would be reading something and I'm not quite understanding how everybody now like goes to AI, I would have to go to a dictionary. I would have to go to a thesaurus. I would have to go through some type of book, either going through the library or online research. But that type of journey was fun because you was learning along the way and the information stuck because you was spending time looking for it. Whereas now you don't really retain that much if you're using AI and it's doing the work for you.
And AI's got a perspective, like it has its own way of interpreting information, that it has a perspective. And so I like to just trust myself and my intuition more than a computer program. But what you were saying about the water, what's interesting that I've noticed on social media, there's been a lot of public conversation about the water usage of AI, and agriculture uses so much more. Know that I'm a vegan, and I learned just this weekend that
Mhm.
human trafficking is significantly involved in fish. That our fish is easy and cheap as a result of humans being exploited in Thailand and overseas. And so I think that there's a lot that we as in this country specifically kind of choose to ignore, choose not to highlight,
Mhm.
because it's a lot more convenient and comfortable not to notice the data centers in the black and brown communities, the water usage of animal agriculture and data centers, and how much exploitation is involved in our easy comforts of American life, that part of the comfort involves ignoring it altogether. So
Mhm.
I have I have peace in doing what I can. Making the decision to be a vegan was a big choice, and my decision to stay vegan day to day, moment to moment, feels like my one little thing I can do. This is me
Mhm.
not participating in this piece of human exploitation. I'm sure there's a lot of things that I do. I know that the minerals in our phones are mined from Africa, and a lot of people lose their lives from the wars happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. There's a great documentary on it called City of Joy on Netflix that I highly recommend. But do the best that I can to
Mhm.
educate myself,
Yep.
and to do what I can, to keep my mental health in order and take what one step at a time. So I feel like that's my last minute nugget. Be lovely. I'd love to invite you. You always have a nice gem to end each episode, and make a decision whether you'd like me to pray out or whether you would like to pray out.
I would like you to pray out. And just to piggyback, like as we end this episode today, I just would like to implore people to be curious about the world around you, be curious about the people around you, try to learn as much as possible. Every single day is another opportunity to learn something that you didn't know yesterday. Learning is fun, and try not to depend on AI. Please save the environment and save your brain.
Save the environment, save your brain. And so, a perfect way to begin with saving the environment and saving your brain is to start with prayer. So, I invite us to just take a moment to get comfortable in the spaces that we are currently occupying, knowing and trusting that wherever we are in this present moment, is exactly where we are meant to be. Whatever our understanding of God, of spirits, of life, of source is, that is exactly the mentality that we are meant to have. And I am grateful to trust and know that the right message that has impacted each one of us has gotten through, that we are showing up as the change that we wish to see in the world. And I am grateful for the impact that we make as a result of this conscious commitment. And in gratitude, I invite us to affirm this prayer however we are most comfortable. I choose to close by saying, and so it is.
Amen. Thank you for praying us out, Rev Casey Taylor. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for another week of What's Up and Why, bringing you the bright side of life, one fun moment at a time. You can catch up with us online at WUAW show, on Instagram and YouTube. And you can catch us back here, same time, same place, next Thursday. Thank you for
Yes, yes.
joining us.
Have the best week ever.